Helgakviða Hjörvarðssonar. The Lay of Helgi, the son of Hjörvarð. The three Helgi lays, all found in the Codex Regius, have been the subjects of a vast amount of discussion, in spite of which many of the facts regarding them are still very far from settled. It is indeed scarcely possible to make an unqualified statement regarding these three poems for which a flat contradiction cannot be found in the writings of some scholar of distinction. The origin of the Helgi tradition, its connection with that of Sigurd, the authorship, date, and home of the poems, the degree to which they have been altered from their original forms, the status of the composer of the copious prose notes. These and many other allied questions have been and probably always will be matters of disputes among the students of the Edda's history. Without attempting to enter into the discussion in detail, certain theories should be noted. Helgi appears originally to have been a Danish popular hero, the son of King Halfdan. Saxo Grammaticus has a good deal to say about him in that capacity, and it has been pointed out that many of the place names in the Helgi lays can be pretty clearly identified with parts of Denmark and neighboring stretches of the Baltic. The Danish Helgi, according to Saxo, was famous as the conqueror of Hunding and Hrothbrod, the latter as the result of a naval expedition at the head of a considerable fleet. From Denmark, the story appears to have spread northward into Norway and westward into the Norse settlements among the islands. Not many of its original features remained, and new ones were added here and there, particularly with regard to Helgi's love affair with Sigrún. The victories over Hunding and Hrothbrod, however, were generally retained, and out of material relating to these two fights and to the Helgi Sigrún story were fashioned the two lays of Helgi Hundingsbane. Now, how Helgi legend became involved with that of the Volsungs is an open question. Both stories traveled from the south, and presumably about the same time, so it is not unnatural that some confusion should have arisen. At no time, however, was the connection particularly close so far as the actual episodes of the two stories were concerned. In the two lays of Helgi Hundingsbane, the relationship is established only by the statement that Helgi was the son of Sigmund and Borghild. Sigurd is not mentioned, and in the lay of Helgi, the son of Hjörvarð, there is no connection at all. On the other hand, Helgi does not appear in any of the Eddic poems dealing directly with the Volsung stories, although in one passage of doubtful authenticity, see Regensmal introductory note, his traditional enemy Hunding does represented by his sons. In the Volsung saga, the story of Helgi includes the fight with Hunding and Hrothbrod, and the love affair with Sigrún is told in chapters 8 and 9, without otherwise affecting the course of the narrative. Here, as in the Helgi lays, Helgi is the son of Sigmund Volsungsson and Borghild. Sigurd, on the other hand, is the son of Sigmund and Hjördis, the latter being the daughter of King Eylimi. Still another son, who complicates both stories somewhat, is Sinfjotli, son of Sigmund and his own sister, Signy. Sinfjotli appears in both the Helgi Hundingsbane lays and in the Volsunga saga, but not in any of the Eddic poems belonging to the Volsung cycle. See Fradalta Sinfjotla and note. There is a certain amount of resemblance between the story of Helgi and Sigrún and that of Sigurd and Brynhild, particularly as the annotator responsible for the poe's notes insists that Sigrún was a valkyrie. Whether this resemblance was the cause of bringing the two stories together, or whether the identification of Helgi as Sigmund's son resulted in alterations of the love story in the Helgi poems cannot be determined. The first of the three Helgi poems, the Lay of Helgi, the son of Hjörvarð, is a somewhat distant cousin of the other two. The Helgi in question is apparently the same traditional figure, and he leads a naval expedition, but he is not the son of Sigmund. There is no connection with the Volsung cycle, and his wife, Svava, not Sigrún. the same time, the points of general resemblance with the two Helgi Hundingsbanelæs are such as to indicate a common origin, provided one goes back far enough. The annotator brings the stories together by the naive expedient of having Helgi born again, and not only once, but twice. The first Helgi lay is manifestly in bad shape and includes at least 2 distinct poems, differentiated not only by subject matter but by metrical form. Although the question is debatable, the longer of these poems, stanzas 1 through 11 and 31 through 43, seems to turn to have been compounded out of fragments of 2 or more Helgi poems. The first 5 stanzas are a dialogue between a bird and Atli, one of Hjörvarð's followers, concerning the winning of Sigrún, who is destined to be Hjörvarð's wife and Helgi's mother. Stanzas 6 through 11 are a dialogue between Helgi and a valkyrie. The accompanying prose so calls her and identifies her as Volva, but there is nothing in the verse to prove this. Stanzas 12 to 30 form a fairly consecutive unit in which Atli, on guard over Helgi's ship, has a vigorous argument with the giantess Hrimgerd, whence this section has sometimes been called the Hrimgerdramál. The last section, stanzas 31 through 43, is again fairly consecutive and tells the death of Helgi following the rash oath of his brother Hethen to win Svava for himself. Parts 1, 2, and 4 may all have come from the same poem, or they may not. It is quite impossible to tell, surely. All of them are generally dated by commentators not later than the first half of the 10th century, whereas the Hrimgerdramál is placed considerably later. When and by whom these fragments were pieced together is another vexed question, and this involves a consideration of the prose notes and links, of which the Helgakviða Hjörvarðssonar has larger amount than any other poem in the Edda. These prose links contain practically all the narrative, the verse being almost exclusively dialogue. Whoever composed them seems to have been consciously trying to bring his chaotic verse material into some semblance of unity. But he did his work pretty clumsily, with manifest blunders and contradictions. Bugge has advanced the theory that these prose passages are to be regarded as an original and necessary part of the work, but this hardly squares with the evidence. It seems probable, rather, that the Helgi tradition spread from its native Denmark through the Norse regions of the north and west and became gradually interwoven, although not in essentials, with the other great hero cycle from the south, that of the Volsungs. A considerable number of poems dealing with Helgi were composed at different times and in different places, reflecting varied forms of the story. Many generations afterwards, when Iceland's literary period had arrived, some zealous scribe committed to writing such poems or fragments of poems as he knew, piecing them together and annotating them on the basis of information which has reached him through other channels. The prose notes to Helgakviða Hjörvarðssonar too frankly omits this patchwork process. A section of 4 stanzas, 13 through 16, is introduced with the phrase, as is said in the old Volsung. The final prose note cites an incident told in Carlios, and the 2-line speech is quoted, as it is written from the Helgakviða. The whole problem of the origin, character, and home of the Helgi poems has been discussed in great detail by Bugge in his Helgadiktin Idin Adre Edda, Deres Hjem og Forbindsleler, which was translated by W.H. Schofield under the title The Home of the Eddic Poems, is available for readers of English. This study is exceedingly valuable, if not in all respects convincing. The whole matter is so complex and so important in the history of Old Norse literature, and any intelligent reading of the Helgi poems is so dependent on understanding the conditions under which they have come down to us, that I have here discussed the question more extensively than the scope of a mere introductory note to a single poem would warrant. Helgakviða Hjörvarðssonar, Part 1 of Hjörvarð and Sigrún. Hjörvarð was the name of a king who had 4 wives. One was called Alfhild, and their son was named Hethan. The second was called Seeress, and their son was named Humlung. The third was called Sinroth, and their son was named Himling. King Hjörvarð had made a great vow to have as wife whatsoever woman he knew was fairest. He learned that King Svafnir had a daughter fairer than all others, whose name was Sigrún. Ithmund was the name of one of his jarls. He had a son called Atli, who went to woo Sigrún on behalf of the king. He dwelt the winter long with King Svafnir. There was a jarl called Thranmar, Sigrún's foster father. The daughter was named Alof. The jarl told him that the maiden's hand was denied, and Atli went home. Atli, the jarl's son, stood one day in a certain wood. A bird sat up in the branches over him, and it had heard that his men called Hjörvarð's wives the fairest of women. The bird twittered, and Atli hearkened to what it spoke. It said, "Sawest thou Sigrún, Svafnir's daughter, the fairest maid in her homeland found? Though Hjörvarð's wives by men are held goodly to see in Glacier's wood." Atli spake, "Now with Atli, Ithmund's son, wilt thou say more, thou bird so wise?" The bird spake, "I may, if a prince an offering makes, and I have what I will from the house of the king." Atli spake, "Choose not Hjörvarð, nor sons of his, nor the wives so fair of the famous chief. Ask not the brides that the princes are, fair let us deal in friendly wise." The bird spake, "A fane now will I ask, and altars many. Gold horned cattle the princes shall give me. If Sigrún yet shall sleep in his arms, or free of will the hero shall follow." This was after Atli went on his journey. But when he came home and the king asked his tidings, he said, "Troubled we had, but tidings none. Our horses failed in the mountains high, the waters of Samorn we must wade. Svafnir's daughter with rings bedecked, she whom he sought was still denied us." The king bade that they should go another time, and he went with them himself. But when they came up on the mountain, they saw Svavaland burning and mighty dust clouds from many steeds. The king rode from the mountains forward into the land, and made a night's stay hard by a stream. Atli kept watch and went over the stream. He found there a house. A great bird sat on the housetop to guard it, but he was asleep. Atli hurled his spear at the bird and slew it. And in the house he found Sigrún, the king's daughter, and Elof, the jarl's daughter, and he brought them both thence with him. Jarl Franmar had charged himself into the likeness of an eagle, and guarded them from the enemy host by magic. Hrothmar was the name of a king, a wooer of Sigrún. He slew the king of Svavaland, and plundered and burned his land. King Hjörvarð took Sigrún, and Atli took Alof. Part 2. Hjörvarð and Sigrún had a son, mighty and of noble stature. He was a silent man, and no name stuck fast to him. He sat on a hill and saw 9 valkyries riding. One of them was the fairest of all. She spake, "Late wilt thou, Helgi, have heard of rings, thou battle tree fierce, or of shining fields. The eagle screams soon, if thou never speakest. So hero hard, the heart may cry." Helgi spake, "What shall a gift I have, with Helgi's name, glorious maid, for the giving is thine? All thy words shall I think on well, but I want them not if I win not thee." The Valkyrie spake, "Swords I know lying in Sigurd's home. 50 there are, save only 4. One there is that is best of all, the shield destroyer, with gold it shines. In the hilt his fame, in the haft his courage. In the point is fear for its owner's foes. On the blade there lies a blood-flecked snake, and a serpent's tail round the flats is twisted. Elimi was the name of a king whose daughter was Svava. She was a valkyrie, and rode air and sea. She gave Helgi this name, and shielded him oft thereafter in battle. Helgi spake, Hjörvarð, king unwholesome thy counsels, though famed thou art in leading the folk, letting fire the homes of heroes eat, who evil deed had never done thee. Yet Hrothmar still hoard doth hold the wealth that once our kinsmen wielded. Full seldom care the king disturbs, heir to dead men he deems himself. Hjörvarð answered that he would give Helgi a following if he fain would revenge his mother's father. Then Helgi got the sword that Svava had told him of. So he went, and Atli with him, and they slew Hrothmar, and they did many great deeds. Part 3. He slew the giant Hati, whom he found was sitting on a certain mountain. Helgi and Atli lay with their ships in Hatafjord. Atli kept watch during the first part of the night. Rimgerd, Hati's daughter, spake. How are the heroes in Hatafjord? The ships are covered with shields. Bravely ye look, and little ye fear. The name of the king would I know. Atli spake. Helgi his name, and never thou mayst harm to the hero bring. With iron is fitted the prince's fleet, nor can witches work us ill. Hrimgerd spake. Now who, thou mighty man, art thou? By what name art thou known to men? He trusts thee well, the prince who wills that thou stand at the stem of his ship. Atli spake. Atli am I, and ill shalt thou find me. Great hate for witches I have. Oft have I been in the dripping bows, and to dusk riders death have brought. Corpses, hungry giantess, how art thou called? Say which, who thy father was. 9 miles deeper, thou mayst thou sink, and a tree grow tall on thy bosom. Rimgerd spake. Rimgerd am I, my father was Hati, of giants the most in might. Many a woman he won from her home, ere Helgi hewed him down. Atli spake. Which, in front of the ship thou hast, and laid before the fjord. To run wouldst have given the ruler's men, if a spear had not stuck in thy flesh. Hrimgerd spake. Dull art thou, Atli. Thou dreamest, methinks. The lids lie over thine eyes. By the leader's ship my mother lay. Hlövar's sons on the sea I slew. Thou wouldst nay, Atli, be gelded thou art. See Hrimgerd hoists her tail. In thy hinder end is thy heart, methinks, though thy speech is a stallion's cry. Atli spake. A stallion I seem if thou seest to try me, and I leap to land from the sea. I shall smite thee to bits, if so I will, and heavy sinks Hrimgerd's tail. Hrimgerd spake. Go ashore then, Atli. If sure of thy might, let us come to Varen's cove. Straight shall thy rounded ribs be made, if thou comest within my claws. Atli spake. I will not go till the warriors wake, again their chief to guard. I should wonder not, foul witch, if up from beneath our keel thou should come. Hrimgerd spake. Awake now, Helgi, and Hrimgerd requite that Hati to death thou hast due. If a single night she could sleep by the prince, then requited are all her ills. Helgi spake. 'Tis Lothan shall have thee. Thou art loathsome to men. His home in Thali he has. Of the wild dwellers west is the giant wise. He is meet as a mate for thee. Hrimgerd spake. More thou lovest her who scanned the harbour. Light last night among the men. The gold-decked maid bore magic, methinks. When the land from the sea she sought, and fast she kept your fleet. She alone is to blame that I may not bring death to the monarch's men. Helgi spake. Hrimgerd, mark, if thy hurts I requite. Tell now the truth to the king. Was there one who the ships of the warrior warded, or did many together go? Hrimgerd spake. Thrice 9 there were, but one rode first, a helmed maid white of hue. Their horses quivered, there came from their manes dew in the dales so deep. Hail on the woods so high, thence men their harvest have, but ill was the sight I saw. Atli spoke. Last eastward, Hrimgerd, for Helgi has struck thee. Down with the runes of death, safe in harbor floats the prince's fleet, and safe are the monarch's men. Helgi spake. It is day, Hrimgerd, for Atli held thee. Till now thy life thou must lose. As a harbor mark, men shall mock at thee, where in stone thou shalt ever stand. Part 4. King Helgi was a mighty warrior. He came to King Eylimi and sought the hand of his daughter Svava. Then Helgi and Svava exchanged vows, and greatly they loved each other. Svava was at home with her father, while Helgi was in the field. Svava was still a valkyrie as before. Hethen was at home with his father, King Hjörvarðsson, in Norway. Hethen was coming home alone with the forest one Yule Eve, and found a troll woman. She rode on a wolf and had snakes in the place of a bridle. She asked Hethen for his company. Nay, said he. She said, Thou shalt pity for this as the king's toast. That evening the great vows were taken. The sacred boar was brought in, the men laid their hands thereon, and took their vows as the king's toast. Hethen vowed that he would have Svava, Eylimi's daughter, the beloved of his brother Helgi. Then such grief seized him, and he went forth on wild paths southward over the land, and found Helgi, his brother. Helgi said, Welcome, Hethi! What hast thou to tell of tidings new that from Norway come? Wherefore didst leave thy land, O prince, and fared alone to find us here? Hethen spake. A deed more evil have I come done than brother mine thou erst canst mend, for I have come the child of a king, thy bride for mine at the monarch's toast. Helgi spake. Grieve not, Hethen, for true shall hold the words we both by the bier have sworn. To the isle a warrior will I go. There shall I come the 3rd night hence, and doubtful must be my coming back. So may all will be well, if fate so wills. Hethen spake. Thou said once, Helgi, that Hethen was a friend full good, and gifts didst give him. More seemly it were that sore to redden, than friendship thus to thy foe to give. Helgi spoke thus because he foresaw his death, for his following spirits had met Hethen when he saw the woman riding on the wolf. Alf was the name of a king, the son of Hrothmar, who had marked out the battle place with Helgi at Sigurðsvoll, after a stay of 3 nights. Then Helgi spoke. On a wolf there rode, when dusk it was, a woman who fain would have him follow. Well she knew that now would fall Sigrun's son at Sigurðsvoll. There was a great battle, and there Helgi got a mortal wound. Sigurd riding did Helgi send to seek out Alimi's only daughter. Bid her swiftly, ready to be, if her lover alive she would find. Sigurd spake, Hither now has Helgi sent me. With thee, Svava, thyself to speak. The hero said he fain would see thee, ere life the nobly born should leave. Svava spake, What chance with Helgi Hjörvarðsson? Hard to me is hard to come. If the sea smote him, a sword bit him, ill shall I bring to all his foes. Sigurd spake, In the morning he fell at Frekkastein. The king who was the noblest beneath the sun. Alf has the joy of victory all, though need therefore is never his. Helgi spake, Hail to thee, Svava, thy sorrow rule. Our meeting last in life is this. Hard the wounds of the hero bleed, and close to my heart the sword has come. I bid thee, Svava, weep not, bride, if thou wilt hearken to these my words. The bed for Hethen have thou ready, and yield thy love to the hero young. Svava spake, A vow I had in my dear loved home, when Helgi sought with rings to have me. That's not of my will if the warrior died, would I fold in my arms a man unfamed. Hethen spake, Kiss me, Svava, I came not back, Rogheim to see, and Rathel's fjall, till vengeance I have for the son of Hjörvarð, the king who was the noblest beneath the sun. Of Helgi and Svava it is said that they were born again.